Okay, that's recording on Chris. I called you Rob then, looking at that.
I've come in on Rob's Google account.
Yeah, indeed.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah, that's up.
Brilliant. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name's Chris Johnson. I'm the head of corporate and commercial at Johnson & Boon Solicitors, and today I'm going to go through what choosing the right business structure means and what some of the pros and cons of each type of structure that are currently available. Now, this isn't an exhaustive list. Obviously, being a lawyer, you've got to caveat everything that you say, but it does give everyone a broad spectrum of things that when you are setting up a business, what the methods are and what the pros and cons of each aspect are. So moving on, why does this matter? Now, a lot of clients will come to me and say, I can set up my business myself. I'm happy to do it myself. I don't need any legal advice. And that is correct. You can do that. But what you've got to always consider is when you're setting up a business, who carries the risk? Is it you as an individual or is it the company as an entity? And moving forward, what are the steps that you want to try and do with your business? Don't think about it today. Think about it in 10 years' time. What is that business going to look like? Because what the foundational steps that you take today will have an impact on what you can do in them 10 years. Now, anything you do today isn't irreversible, but what it does mean is if you do it wrong in the first instance, it's going to be more costly as you go through the process. So we always talk about who carries risk. What is the way that you're setting the business up tax efficient for what the end position is going to look like? Is it going to impact the ability to raise investment? Now, this is a killer for some companies because everybody, depending on how you're setting up in the first instance, if you're setting up organically, will always need some form of investment, whether it's institutional lending, whether it's private equity or venture capitalism. Whatever that is, whatever method of investment that you get, the way you set your business up can be a positive or negative for that. It shapes the exit strategy. Now, everybody who sets up a business wants to, at some point, either create generational wealth for themselves or have a payday, because the hard work that you put in across that period of time you need to be recompensed for that. The way you set this company up now will cause you issues in terms of tax, in terms of money that you'll have to pay to investors, shareholders, etc., depending on the method you choose. And as I said before, decisions you make today can sometimes be difficult to unwind further on. So here are some of the options that are available. They're not exhaustive. There are other methods of setting your business up, but these are the normal ones that people will take. And we'll go through in this presentation each one. There's a sole trader, partnership agreements, limited company, LLPs, and also group structures. Now, group structures in itself could be a whole topic, which I'll probably do in a separate presentation because it is quite, depending if it's in just a UK group or whether it is a international group, there are different methods in which we would set that up. So let's get cracking on what's available. So sole trader. So what is a sole trader? It's basically you. A lot of individuals set up their first businesses in this way because it's easy. It's easy to set it up. There's no real governance. It's low cost, low risk. You are completely in control. You haven't got to take any form of direction from anybody else or ask anyone's opinion, or you are the business. Now, what does that mean? Is that it gives you a lot of flexibility to make decisions quickly, and you're building and you're building and you're building, and that's what people like. That's the entrepreneurial spirit that people love, and that's why a lot of people start in the sole trader environment. But there are negatives to it because it is just you. There isn't what is known as the corporate veil, which I'll talk about a little later on in this presentation. So you have unlimited personal liability. If something goes wrong, it's on you, and they can come after your own personal assets, house, car, anything that's in your name. If anything goes wrong with your business, it limits your ability to raise finance because of that. A lot of businesses, private equity in it particularly, will not really lend to sole traders because in effect they're backing a one-man or one-woman institution. It's tax inefficient because every pound that you make as your business, you are taxed personally on that. And then finally, when you're going to exit, if you're a sole trader, and you're looking to sell that business is intrinsically linked with you as an individual. You can't move on from that without, people say the minute you leave, your business has no value because everybody really only responds to you. But again, being a lawyer, we focus on the negative, but as a positive, it gives you the ability in the first instance to get up and going. It doesn't mean that you'll stay as a sole trader. What I tend to say to people is, especially if they've got a significant amount of startup capital themselves, test the water in a sole traded environment. And then ultimately, if you think that you are going to, scale, then we'd look to move into another vehicle for you to do that. What are the next vehicle are partnerships. Now, this again, being a lawyer, is a typical professional services type of environment, a partnership, but it can be used for other businesses. It's not limited to professional services. You can do it in a normal estate environment that you guys are in. There's no issue with that. One thing that it is done, it's governed by the Partnership Act, and in that, if you haven't got a partnership agreement, the provisions in that Partnership Act will be the provisions that you have to govern your partnership by. It has joint and several liability for all partners, and all partners act as agents for the firm. Now, what does that mean? That's very legalese, I appreciate. What it means in plain, simple English is, if me and Rob are partners, for example, and Rob commits to a £1 million loan, I'm committing to that £1 million loan as well. There's no ability that you can't put a paper between us. If we can't pay that loan back because of what Rob does or what I do, we both have to bear the costs of that. So there's high risk in terms of, because a partner can bind you in a partnership agreement. But there are positives. It's flexible and easy. You can pool capital, so there's no, you have to keep the money in this business and that business and that business. It just goes into one pot, and that allows you to move and be flexible and take up opportunities that you wouldn't have. And then it's also tax transparent, so that there is no issue again in terms of tax being hidden behind the company. It's personal tax. But again, there's unlimited liability, as I said at the start of this. One partner can bind it. And then this third and final point in the cons is really the key one for me, because this personally happened to me. When you're a partner, partners will evolve. It doesn't have to just be 1 and 2. It can be, you can have 10 partners, 20 partners. And what happens is, in different parts of the life cycle of a partnership, you will have partners who were there at the start, who, when you as new blood want to come in and put your money in, they will want to leave. So what will happen is, you'll be pushing on to say, right, we need to do this with the business, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And the person who's leaving doesn't actually want to do that, because they want to take their partnership money out, because they're coming to the end of their journey. So the money you're putting in, they're taking out. So there is no money to grow the business. So there is whatever stage of a partnership it is, if you're joining an established partnership, it's really key for you to understand what is the legacy plan for the people who are leaving, and what is the capital reserves of the partnership after that. So that's partnerships. Again, a whistle-stop tour. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them at the end, but there's a lot more to partnerships that I could go into. Limited company. Now, this is the main one. This is the 99% of people will start a limited company. Why? Because it's a separate legal entity. It's governed by the Companies Act 2006, and it gives limited liability, this corporate veil. So what that means is, the business itself can access its own persona. It can go and get assets. It can go and buy properties. It can go and buy intellectual property rights. It can do anything it wants to do in its own name. And what that means is that if there is any liability, it sits with the company, not with the individual, in the same way as a sole trader. So what is the benefit of that? It's a clear ownership structure. There's normally shareholders, directors who work for the business, who can also be shareholders in the limited company. But what the business itself is the entity that transacts, not the individuals that sit within it. Every private equity firm, institutional investment, will like a limited company, but they'll be happy to lend money to a limited company, subject to a solid business plan. And also, you can have the ability to issue more shares as a limited company and facilitate capital coming in that way, bringing more shareholders into the pot. Now, that dilutes your individual shareholding, but as long as you maintain a significant number, depending on the split, normally 51%, you will have control of that company. What are the negatives? Because there's the ability to bring in external investment, because there's the ability to move and transact as a legal entity, there's a lot more governance and compliance regulations that you have to comply with. There's a formal process that needs to be documented when you make a decision, and that, you know, board resolutions need to be done. There needs to be the appropriate minuting of actions and activities, and there are what's known as director duties. Now, I'll do a separate training session on director duties because it's quite a significant topic, and anyone who is a director should understand their director duties and obligations because they are significant, and if you are in breach of them, there are civil and criminal sanctions that can be applied to you. So it is really important that if you are a director of a limited company, you understand your obligations. But this is the vehicle. This is what most people set up, especially, and it's a scalable product. If you're going to buy multiple properties and assets, you would normally use a limited co and then maybe merge into a group structure, which we'll touch on later on. LLPs. This again is more in a professional services environment. This is what most solicitors practices, accountancy practices are set up in. It's a hybrid really of the limited company and a partnership, and it's governed by the Limited Liability Partnership Act 2000. This again can contract and hold assets in the same way that a limited company can. It definitely requires an LLP agreement, which will govern the way in which the entity will operate. It has pros, which are, again, limited liability, that you can't get past the corporate veil unless you as an individual LLP member, in the same way if you were a director of a limited company, were to give something like a personal guarantee, that pierces the corporate veil, and therefore you do attract personal liability in that instance. But if you don't do things like that and you always contract as the entity, the LLP or the limited company, then ultimately you will have protection of the corporate veil. There's flexible profit sharing agreements in a LLP. This big one is that it's less suited for equity investments. Now, a lot of solicitors practices have actually moved back out of being an LLP into a limited company. As you'll see, private equity companies are buying up more solicitors practices because they feel that it's what's known as an ABS structure, alternative business structure, where private equity can put money in and it won't be restricted by the LLP agreement, because under them normally there is not an ability to raise capital from external funding. As I said there, it's a complex document, an LLP. It's a complex way of working, but professional services do like it. Finally, group structures, which is a little bit of a hybrid of everything. Normally in a group structure, you'll have a holding company with a load of subsidiary companies off it. And those subsidiary companies can be your trading company, they can be your asset holding companies, they can be your intellectual property rights can be held in a subsidiary company, but all the revenue will feed back up to a group structure at the holdco. The holdco doesn't have to be a UK entity, it can be held offshore if you wish, in a trust if you wish. There are many different ways. As I said at the start of this, we'll do a separate session on group structures and the benefits of them. But the main pros and cons, it gives asset protection. It creates what's known as a cellular structure. If you put your assets into one vehicle, it does not affect the assets in another vehicle. And the only connection between the vehicles is the holding company at the top, which will allow you, if you so wish, by intercompany loans or whatever your memorandums of articles of association say, allow intercompany loans between the vehicles. It will also allow you to offset losses in one vehicle against profits in another vehicle, which will enable tax efficiency through corporation tax reduction. It is a more complex system. It definitely requires more governance. It definitely requires you to tell us where you're going as a company, because we have to set the top structure right in the top holding co, and then we need to make sure that the agreements that govern each individual subsidiary company or SPV vehicle are actually watertight, so that there is no way that you can get through one vehicle into the group structure into another vehicle. So we don't need to understand as lawyers what your aim is. But this is a real good way if you've got multiple assets across different portfolios. Some might be in real estate, some might be in real estate in different countries, some might be, you know, as I said before, intellectual property rights. All of these can be held in different vehicles and be held by a group holding co. And we can walk through that in a little bit more detail later on. So what are the key considerations? It's been a whistle stop this, so I appreciate if there are questions or queries or anything like that, please let me know. But what I always ask clients when we're talking around these questions, what is your risk profile? Are you comfortable with being exposed to contractual, regulatory and operational risk personally? If so, sole trader seems a good fit. If you're not going to enter into anything that's too risky, sole trader again is a great fit. If you do want to have some form of protection, an LLP or a limited company would probably be a better suit. What's your funding strategy? This is always the key one for me, because no scalable business will be able to do it without external funding unless you've got significant cash reserves personally. And that is organic growth. Is you're going to eat away at the elephants. You know, each time you get a job, you're going to build to another job and build to a bigger project and move forward, and that's great. It's a self-funding model. If that's the case, then you're not going to need external funding. Then maybe a partnership or a sole trader again is still a great option for you. But what you've also got to remember is the more profit that you drive, the more profit that you grow under the sole trader, it will be taxed personally. You will not be subject to 20% corporation tax. You will get, as soon as you get over the relevant threshold of 50,000 and 100,000, your tax bracket goes up significantly. So you'll be potentially losing money, even though you're earning more revenue. As I said, and that leads into what are the tax objectives. If you want to be tax efficient, sole trader definitely isn't efficient. If you want, limited company is always more efficient because you're able to put more operating costs through than you are in a sole trader. And obviously, you only get taxed at corporation tax rate of 20%. Plus, obviously, you pay money tax on dividends. What does success look like as well? This is a key one for me. A lot, and it sounds very, you know, nuanced, and it's very new. What a lifestyle business. Do you just want a business that will transact for you outside of your regular work? You don't really want to put much effort into it. You just want to tick along and be on the side. Or is this something you're all in and you want to scale it and you want to be able to pass this on as part of your exit plan to future generations and create generational wealth for your family and whoever, you know, you're leaving it to? Or is this something that, you know, you're only doing it for you, you only want to make it the extra money on the side to do X, Y, and Z? Then that question really does drive what options we give you as individuals. That is where we are. Succession, sale, and long-term value is a question for you. And once you know that, we can help you deliver the right method. As I said, there are different methods outside of the ones that I've talked about today, but there are different ways in which you as individuals can make money. And the way that you make money and the way that you actually retain that money is key for us. As you know, we're part of the EXP solicitor offering. We're here to help any agent who comes in and advise them what are the best methods for you to make money. That is why we're here. So that's the end of the slides. There's my contact details, me looking a lot more professional in my suit rather than my t-shirt today. If anyone has got any questions, please just drop me an email, give me a call. I've given my LinkedIn bio, etc. there as well. And thank you very much for listening to me.
No worries. Cheers for that, Chris. It was interesting. I know quite a bit about structures, but yeah, it's useful to go over, isn't it? You forget about some of the nuances, especially with the LLPs and things, which you don't come across very often.
No, but there are benefits to it, even though everyone does think it's just solicitors who do that, but obviously anyone can enter into whatever they want. Yeah,
indeed. No, it is good. Now, one thing I was going to ask just to end on, because obviously when you start, it isn't where you end, and usually, you know, it's better to start with these plans. But if you started, you know, sole trader to limited, that's quite a common way of progressing. You know, when people start growing and they enter into agreements and things, they think, oh shit, this is getting real now. So yeah, they do progress to limited. And if you went to limited and then there was a you know, there was an advantage to go to an LLP. Is that a transition you can do?
Absolutely. Any one of them is like a plug and play, is how I position it, Rob. You know, if you start in one, you can evolve and morph into others. It's more costly because obviously you have to rewrite your existing articles of association into LLP agreements and things like that. But anything is possible. You know, there is no prohibitive nature in terms of stopping you from moving from one to the other. It is more about, is it right, cost effective for you to do that now, or is it better for you to maybe set up you could set up an LLP and then have your standalone company over here and have a group over the top. You know, you can have an LLP and an unlimited in a group structure. There's no differentiation on that as well.
Yeah, that's quite interesting as well, because again, our business side of this business, when we're coming across business sales, a lot of the time, not every time, a lot of the time, somebody's got 2 or 3 different things mixed into the one business. So somebody might do something and then they've got another part of the business which does something else. So now we can say to them, you know, you can go and speak to, you know, you guys, somebody, and start looking at whether they want to split that business out into, like I said, and create a group structure and sell off bits of it.
There's huge, obviously, you're absolutely spot on. There's ways in which we can dissect the business into different ways. The problem, as everyone will know, is the minute you start to dissect it, the HMRC come running, don't they, for their piece of meat. So it's about dissecting it in a way in which, you know, maybe you might have to put some of it into a trust, etc., to try and, or a lifetime legacy trust or a family office, so that you try and retain as much value yourself rather than giving it to the government. Which is, if the HMRC are on here, I apologise, but that's not really my game. Is to give anything to the HMRC.
Yeah, no, indeed. No, they're not. We don't communicate. Yeah, no worries. I don't know if there's a few guys. This thing has 4 others on at the moment. There's a couple of note takers in. I think there's 4 others on as well. So if nobody's got any questions, I'll say thank you for your time, mate.
No problem at all. If there is any questions, as I say, this will get uploaded, and I think the contact details are there. Just drop me an email.
Yeah, indeed. And as always, like I said, you guys are in the supplier WhatsApp groups anyway with us, so you know they can just jump into that group and drop a question in.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Yes, thanks. Bye.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.